Hello everyone, we're back with a new Drakantos update. They are finally going over some more details on the movement speed. We've got some little teasers, some little GIFs here and there, but nothing really substantial, just kind of like showing little bits and pieces. But they've gone and uploaded a video here, and they're kind of showcasing a lot about the movement, talking a lot more about it, what they've done with that, how it's working out, how it's affected development time, unfortunately, and they've hinted at some other things as well. So let's go ahead and jump into it. Let's look at some of the key parts of the video here. So in the beginning, they kind of started talking about how the game used to work, how the game used to feel with the old grid system, the 8x8. And you can kind of see it on the screen here. They put the lines on there to kind of display. And they talked about how this really kind of is not really a design that's done in modern games today. And it kind of made it translate as lag to a lot of players who haven't played the old school SNES kind of games. And it kind of showed how it would wait until the character would get to the middle of the next tile, or the tile it was aiming for, before it would allow you to attack. And that kind of led to some frustration where people thought it was input lag. And there was a little bit of input lag that they did fix, but this made this kind of compounded on top of that. So this is one of the main reasons that they were going to do this. So without the grid there, it didn't look tile based, and that was what people were having, some confusion about. So they have changed that movement, obviously, to remove that grid, so that the style is a lot more fluid, and you can do that movement a lot more precisely and change things up. So he's going to kind of show the after here as well, with the before and after. As you can see on the right hand side here, it's a lot more fluid. You have a lot more control over how far you're moving, when you stop moving, and you can attack a lot quicker. There's a lot more response time that you can do with that. So it's just a lot more smooth and enables you to really have a lot more control over your movement in the game. They followed that up by going through map collision, because that was a big thing that was causing some frustration as well with especially with the horse race. They'll kind of talk about this a little bit here. But basically he's showing now that how the old tile system was, even the smallest object could block off a whole tile, because you're not supposed to be able to walk on it or through it. So they had to close off that entire tile, which could lead to some questionable movement, like, why can't I walk next to this rock? It's because the rock, you're not supposed to be able to go on the rock, that kind of thing. Well, with removing the grid here, you can get a lot more closer to these objects. Obviously you can get right up next to them, and it's going to help a lot with movement in combat and in the horse race, or the mount race, whatever you want to call it. It's going to just make it a lot smoother and easier to navigate. They also showcased how the attacks are kind of being affected by this as well. As you notice in the before and the after here, on the before, it's a very large area that's hit, and it didn't always make sense, because sometimes it would seem like you're out of the attack, but you still get hit by it, especially like with these troll slams and these sand crawlers, these stinking sand crawlers. It's going to make it a lot more accurate as far as like if you're hit by it or not. And it's not only going to be about the attacks, but also the movements and move patterns of the monsters as well. It's going to make it a lot more challenging in some ways. So a lot of people had some concerns with this being making movement too easy, or kind of dumbing down the game. But you have to remember, there's also the monster AI side of it as well. They're going to have a lot more fluid movement. They're going to be able to reach you a lot easier as well, and things like PvP as well. There's a lot more strategy that can be done. You can make sure you're just outside the attack so you can get back to the enemy quicker, that kind of thing. So it's going to be a better system overall, in my opinion here. Next, they talked about how they added mouse support for the keyboard and mouse. They kind of started off by talking about how they tried a keyboard only approach, and it made it easier to adapt to controllers that way and keep both balanced, but a lot of players couldn't find a keyboard layout that really felt comfortable, so they decided to go ahead and add mouse support as well. So now the controls are more similar to like Path of Exile, Diablo, kind of an action ARPG kind of feel there. So they basically made like left click your standard attack, right click your special ability, and then Q your ultimate, E and R as your special attacks as well. So they've kind of gone through and changed how targeting works, where it used to have like a hybrid of tab targeting for certain classes and certain abilities, but then others ignored it. So they decided to take out the whole tab target system and just use it to where you just point your mouse at where you want the attack to go. I think they did say in the Discord, I want to say that they still do have like certain like I don't know if safeguard would be the right word, but that there are still some attacks that will go towards the nearest enemy. Like if your mouse isn't perfectly pointing at one like a legal target, it'll just find the closest one. I think mainly for like basic attacks and things like that, like with R and the Archer and things like that. And they talked about how some of these movements, like you can see here with Liam the Warrior, this ability used to be really hard to aim and really land properly, but now with the mouse movement and the mouse targeting with that, it's a lot smoother. You have a lot more control over where you're landing and which direction you're going as well. And then they're kind of showing RN here, how you can kind of just point the mouse at which one you want to go to, which one you want to be attacking as your primary target. And then it also kind of shows in a second here how her ultimate ability is also going to be affected by that too, where you can kind of be on the move. And this is going to be a lot of strategy that gets added to the game as well, where you can be having, movement towards one direction and then have your mouse kind of pointing at the, like your pursuer basically. So you can kind of kite a lot more effectively now with ranged classes, even other classes as well, but especially for ranged, you can be moving the opposite direction and still be aiming at your pursuers or your target, whichever it may be, and you can more effectively kite mobs without having to stop, turn around, fire, turn back around, move a couple more tiles. So it's going to be a lot smoother for that. They show a couple more examples of how the mouse aiming is going to help with a lot of the abilities that were really hard to aim before. One thing I did notice in the beta was that a lot of these like aiming abilities, it would really slow you down because you really had to like stop, because as soon as you activated the skill, you'd have to like use your movement keys basically to target and aim it. So it was a lot harder to use those abilities, and this is going to make it a lot easier to do so. And then they're showing some stuff with Azul here as well, how you can target where the knives are going to be. So if you want, again, just making these ranged attacks a lot easier to use. And then they also talked about how you can rotate your character around, where before it was a little bit harder because a lot of times you'd have to actually move a full tile just to change directions, unless you were buttered up against something, then you could, face that way. But this way obviously makes it a lot easier to rotate your character around. They also wanted to address the keyboard versus controller, how a lot of people may be worried that using a controller and a mouse is obviously going to be a lot easier and better than doing a controller. So they did go back and they kind of redid how the controller layout feels and how it works, and they think it's turned out a lot better. So they're saying that, and from the video it does kind of look smoother, but they're saying that the controller lets you move a lot smoothly, a lot more smoother, smoothlier, I guess. But instead of being limited to like up, down, left, right, you can really have like a 360 range. So you'll probably have a little bit better movement with it. I'm still on the fence whether the targeting part's going to be a little bit better as well, but they do kind of go over a little bit here where they said that the way like the attacks facing is going to be a lot like Path of Exile, where the direction you are moving, that's the direction that you're going to default to where you're going to attack to, but you can still use the right joystick on the controller to aim differently. So again, like if you wanted to be a range class and kind of move away from your enemy while you're also targeting them and firing at them, you can still be doing that with just by using both analog sticks. So it's going to be a lot of testing, I think, before we can really know for sure if there's going to be a competitive advantage over using, whether you're using a keyboard and mouse or using a controller. It's going to take some convincing in my eyes. I'm a controller, or not a controller, I'm a keyboard and mouse user, but we'll have to see how it plays out. Hopefully we'll get into a test sometime soon, and we can really go in there and test it out. And you guys can bet I'm going to be in there plugging my controller and trying it out and seeing how it looks and feels. So we'll just have to wait and see. They also got into how this is going to affect Monster AI, obviously. I kind of touched on this a little earlier, but they had to rebuild the movement system and the enemy AI system, their pathfinding. They had to go through all of the maps and update artifacts, monsters, bosses, characters, how the orbs modify those things. So there's a lot of things that had to get worked on to make this all fit and updated to this new movement style. So as you can probably expect, this is delaying their development a little bit. They are mostly done with this. Once we get into some of the Discord updates as well, I'll show you some of the messages on that part of it. But they feel like this has been worth it, and from the video here, it does seem like this really is going to be making the game a lot better overall. I was on the fence. I was around when the SNES was around or coming out, and I've got a huge amount of nostalgia for that tile-based system that we had when it first launched here, or during the closed beta rather. And I was a little bit skeptical on how this was going to affect the quality of the game and how it played, how it felt, and all that. But this video really has kind of made me a lot more receptive to it. It does seem like the quality and the challenge and the strategy and everything along with this is still going to be in place. It might be altered a little bit, but it does look like and seem like it's going to be a lot more, a better overall product, and I'm all for that. They did start to kind of wrap up the video here where they talked about how a lot of people have been asking about diagonal sprites. And then they started mentioning games like, Zelda, Chrono Trigger, Sword of Mana, Octopath Traveler, those kind of games. And they mentioned how, while yes, it would be a lot more work to, or not necessarily a lot more, but it would be more work to add in, twice as many sprites. Basically, you'd be doubling the amount of sprites everything has. But they thought about it a little bit, and they decided overall that they wanted to go with the thematic and nostalgic approach of, you have 4 ways to face, and you don't have a diagonal sprite like in those other games that they've been drawing inspiration from. So it is a stylistic choice. It doesn't affect the gameplay. It's not going to make the game worse not to have those diagonal sprites. I'm indifferent towards it. If they wanted to add them, I'd be fine with it. Now that I know they don't want to add them, I'm fine with it. It doesn't matter to me. I know some people are going to complain about it, and everyone's entitled to their own opinion. That's one of the qualities of being human. And overall, I think it's a good choice to make here. It's showing you that the developers are willing to listen to player feedback, and they're also willing to put their foot down and say, no, this is not something we're going to do as well. So it shows that they do have backbone, and they're willing to stand up and say, no, this is the choice we're making, and this is how we're proceeding. But when it is something like, okay, players think the movement feels bad, that actually affects the gameplay and how people play the game. So that's the gameplay. But this is really kind of showing that when it comes down to the quality of the game, how the game plays. They're willing to listen and make these huge changes. Like the changes here, I don't know if people really understand how in depth this change was, how much work it took to go back through every single skill, every single map, every single mob, every single ability, every single environment, all the objects and everything in the world, and go through and redo and remap those basically, so that they can now go around with this new movement style. This has been a huge amount of work. This is basically what they've been working on since the end of the beta there. While, of course, doing some other stuff, like artists don't really necessarily need to be working on movement, but they're programmers and coders and the developers there. This is basically what they've been working on. So it is a huge undertaking. They are at the light at the end of the tunnel phase of this. There's still some polishes happening. I'll show you that in the Discord in a minute here. But it just goes to show again that they are willing to listen to us when it comes to how the game feels, how the game plays, whether it's enjoyable or not. They want to make a good game. But when it comes to artistic choices, like are there going to be diagonal sprites? There's not going to be. So it's great to know that they are willing to make changes based on player feedback, and also decline to make those changes as well if they feel like this either isn't something that is involving the playability of the game or the fun factor of the game. But when it comes to artistic choice, they might do it. They might say, no, we as a developer, this is our vision. I hate saying that because of Path of Exile 2, but this is how we want the game to be. This is how we want the game to feel. This is how we want the game to look. And it really shows that they are willing to stand up and say, no, we're not going to do that. So let's go ahead and jump into the Discord now. All right, so this one isn't necessarily relating to the video here, but there was a guy who asked about how the dungeon invasions and things like that, asking basically if there were going to be zones or the dungeon invasions where there's going to be like lootable PvP, like consequential PvP, I guess would be what I would call it at least. So they're asking, are there going to be zones or dungeon invasions where we can loot people's backpacks and steal the dungeon loots? Their opinion was it would make the game peak, adding nice risk versus reward PvP systems. Frost pretty much shut it down, saying, we'll have dungeon invasions, but we didn't do it yet. It's only in planning, so they're still working on adding that. But note that this game is not Tibia, it's not Albion, it never will be. If you're looking for that kind of game, sorry, you're gonna have to keep looking. So he does go on to talk about a little bit more about PvP, but to me, it's relieving knowing that the PvP in the game isn't going to be a griefing type of PvP, where not only do I'm kind of on the fence on dungeon invasions in the first place. I think it could be cool, but the idea that, you could be queued with some randoms that maybe aren't good at PvP, and then have 3 people who are PvP just invade your dungeon and then kill you and then steal your stuff, right? Not fun for the majority of players. That's not fun. And it's good to know that they're not heading down that direction. They do go into, if there's going to be arena tournaments like Dragon Ball, they're asking here. There's going to be a lot of PvP modes and tournaments as well. So there is going to be PvP. It's mostly going to be opt-in PvP, from what I understand, which I'm all for. I'm 100% okay with like flagging for PvP or joining these PvP modes, like the PvP chests that were in the game. That seemed like a really cool idea. The tournaments also, that was going to be in the next area there. We just didn't get to it yet in the beta. And then another person asked if we'll have, or not really asked, but they expressed how they hope they don't have to wait another year for a beta or early access. Frost is obviously saying here that they want that more than anyone. They want people to play their games. So it's not, don't think they're sitting there saying, well, how much longer can we make these guys hold out? That's not the case at all. It really is, just they want to make sure it's ready. They don't want to release an unfinished product or have it go into early access too early to where it's kind of more like an alpha or something like that. And that they want it to be where when they put something out, it's going to be quality. By what they did with the beta, I'm all on board with them knowing when that's going to be ready here. And then they also talked about, let's see, here's where I kind of chimed in a little bit, saying we've been starving for updates because they haven't really given us too much lately. And now the video is great. It really shows why it's been a bit of a drought of information here. And this is where he kind of shows or expresses that the work that they've been doing here, this has basically been in works since the beta. So as soon as the beta finished and they decided that they were going to do this, it was like you could go back to the Ghost interview, and he basically says, yeah, we're gonna fix that. We're gonna go back and do it. So it's basically been at this point about 3.5 to 4 months since the beta's been out, or since the beta closed. And they're still polishing it, so they're not completely done with the movement, and it has delayed the game, but it'll be worth it. And they've already shifted back to doing content, so that they are polishing it still. They're smoothing the edges out, pun intended, I guess. But they are back on doing content and wrapping up the rest of the stuff that we want to be able to, so that they can kind of release the game and do that. So. They also talked a little bit more about the controller movement exactly, or how the map really kind of works, and with like a controller and the keyboard style here. So somebody was asking or made the comment that it's still tile based, but they trick us with smaller tiles and no delay while moving between tiles. However they make it work, that doesn't matter to me. If it works, it works. You don't always have to look under the hood. But I guess the keyboard does still technically have very small tiles, like much smaller tiles, so that each movement is a lot quicker, and you can also perform actions en route to the next tile technically. With the controller, you actually get the 360 movement, I guess. So apparently he's still going on about how the controller is going to be a lot. He thinks that it's going to be a benefit to use controller for movement. So I'm fine with that. That's again, we'll have to see what it's like when we get back in the game. I'll definitely be somebody who's going in and plugging in those controllers there and seeing how it works out. And then Frost also wanted to kind of clarify that the controller's 100% free movement like other games are, but the collisions and spells are 8x8 because of optimizations. So it's an online game after all, and all those changes already screwed up a lot of the optimizations. So that's probably some of the polish they're working on. But the controller's 100% free movement, and then the collisions and spells still have a tile grid that they go by, but it's a much smaller tile grid. There's many more tiles. So while you still have the 100% free movement, if you're in one of those tiles that are much smaller, then that's what's going to indicate that you get a hit. So it's good to have a little bit of clarification on that there. And then the next one here, it looks like we are talking about how the movement can be a little bit more forgiving because you don't have to wait until you move a full tile before you can correct that movement. You can change course and correct a lot quicker there. So this was kind of what I was pointing out in the video a little bit as well, how the benefit of being able to course correct a lot quicker is also outdone or matched by enemies' abilities to catch up to you, because they also are no longer restricted to the tile grid. So, and then also with the spells, I think there's a lot more, knowing where, because the benefit of having the old tile grid was once you knew which tiles were safe, you could be there and not have to worry about it. With this, the spell and ability zones are going to be a lot more fine, so it's going to be a lot harder to learn where the safe spots are and where the danger spots are. So like think about like the smash. If you saw the paladin's hammer thing that he was doing in the video there, you'll see that it's where before it was just like a big square, but now it's got like not only just a finer line, but there are waves in that line as well. So there's a lot more ability for them to go in and really fine tune that and make it keep the challenge basically. So I don't think it's going to be as easy to read as to make a bad read and instantly change your mind. I think, yes, that part is forgiving, but there's also going to be a higher ceiling on people who know where they can stand and not get hit, and where they, are in danger. So there's a lot more, a much higher ceiling, which I'm always fine with. It's going to really point out the good players to the great players, right? So let's see, what's the next one here? All right, yeah, good for skilled players that can see those gaps better, and then specifically in the harder content there. So he's kind of agreeing with what I'm saying here, I guess. Or maybe I'm agreeing with him rather. So that's kind of at least the last English message that he's sent in the Discord here. So we're going to kind of wrap it up here. But to kind of sum it all up and my thoughts on it overall, I do think this was the right decision to make. Again, I was a little skeptical at first because I do enjoy tile-based movement in games. But this definitely seems like it's the better choice for the health of the game overall. I think there's a lot more strategic components that can be done, kind of looking at how precise some of the ability zones are, I guess, for lack of better terms. Like again with the Paladin's Hammer ability there, how it lends itself to a lot more player control and maybe not control. Control is probably the wrong word, but the player ceiling on the skill level. So you can really put a lot more effort into being the person who knows exactly where you can and can't be, and really utilizing that to your strength. I think that's going to make the PvP in this game a lot better overall. It's going to, allow people to use that to their advantage, be a lot more skillful in where they are, the placement of, paying attention to where they are, where the enemies are, where the zones are going to be and all that. So I do think overall it's a good change. For the PvE as well, obviously there's going to be a lot more strategic things that can be done from the developer side there on how some of the encounters are going to look like that, and how some of the abilities are going to be, used, and how they can probably make some of them more punishing, as far as like how much damage they do, how strong they are, and just leave it up to player agency to learn the mechanics on how to avoid the fire, So I think overall it probably is a better change to make. It's going to draw in a lot of the current player base. That there's definitely the old guys like me who enjoy the old style, enjoy the old movement, all that. But there's also a lot of new players out there, quote unquote new players, that want a game that feels like a modern game but looks like the old school game. So I think this trade-off is definitely worth it overall. And I think that even though this has pushed back, but we were hoping to have like a PvP beta before the end of the year, that's probably not going to happen. It's probably going to be early next year at best. Seeing how like it's been about around 4 months since the closed beta closed, and they said they're still actually polishing this stuff off, but they have started to work on content again. That puts my guess at an estimate on release and all that is saying that we're probably looking at early spring would be my guess. Again, don't take my word for that, but if I was a betting man, I'd probably put it on being sometime around spring of 2026 for either the PvP beta or early access, or we'll have to wait and see, obviously, but probably the PvP beta could probably be a lot sooner. But thinking with how the abilities and everything are going to be affected and impacted by this new movement system, I wouldn't be surprised if that's pushed back to spring as well. But we'll have to wait and see and hope for the best, right? Hopefully we'll get like a new devlog, and now that they're working on more content and not just kind of revamping the movement speed, we'll hopefully get a lot more updates from them along the way. And again, I always like to plug their Discord and their social media as well. Definitely give these guys a follow. Join the Discord. You can get all of that through the Steam page. And they, it's always good to see the updates on there. You can chat in and ask questions, and talk with the community. It's a pretty chill place in there. So if you haven't already, join the Discord, join the Reddit, follow them on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. And if you've liked the video, hit a like, hit subscribe. I always appreciate that. Comment below if you want to make any comments on it as well. I always appreciate your feedback. I try to act on it as much as I can. And I try to answer the questions that you guys ask as well. So again, thank you so much for watching the video. I know this has been a little bit longer one here, but I did want to kind of go through this video because he does speak in, I'm guessing, Portuguese, I think. On the main video there. You can always watch it. It's on their channel. Follow them on YouTube as well, or subscribe to them, whatever it's called. And I know sometimes it's easier to have an English version of it as well, because there's not as many English content creators for this game right now. So not that I consider myself a content creator, but I am doing something. Anyways, hit the like button, subscribe if you like it, and hopefully we'll be seeing some more video and more content from them soon. Peace.